works. Thank you, Pam. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. We have a relatively full agenda, so we will move through it with a certain amount of pace. On the order and roll call, I can see in attendance Linda Andros, Marty McLaughlin, and Susan Schweitzer as commissioners, and myself, Chris Shipper, and as guests, Sven Englund, Newell Cotton, Laura Dice, and Robin Bates Mason. Have I missed anybody? I've got 9 on my grid. I think that's it, right? There are no other attendees at the moment. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We are going to dispense with approving the minutes of September 9th until they've been revised and submitted. We'll do both September and October at the November meeting. We'll start with, as always, the Conservation Commission mission and Sustainable New Canaan, and ask if we have any updates from Robin on this subject.
Hi, yeah, so Tiger completed a data haven report, which is something Sustainable Connecticut had, something for points, and he's downloaded that. We're working on the equity action meeting, which will be on the transfer station. So I've reached out to LAPM and some other groups about getting participants together for seeing what they want to learn about the transfer station, from recycling to food scraps. Canaan Parish will be getting points. We should be getting 50 points for the solar on the town buildings. We didn't get those last time because we didn't have the information yet. But that has since come in. And setting up a meeting for November. We're supposed to meet at least twice a year. So meeting this November, we'll go over everything, but we should be ready to submit for the spring, hopefully get silver. We do need to have a few more programs because they only last a year, but that's easy enough, and we'll just need one more and we're good.
That's great. So what would be the timing for the silver application and accreditation?
It's April that we'll be submitting.
April of 2022.
Yeah, April 2022 we'll be submitting.
Got it. Well, that's exciting. And if there's anything we can do to help, we as the commission stand ready to assist both in spirit and in physical help and in financial. So let us know.
If we have the program coming up, which is on your agenda, we'll be helping.
Okay, very good. We're going to defer the river testing results until December, assuming that Dr. Cosby can attend that meeting. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes.
All
yes.
right. So we'll move on to that. Congratulations. Sorry, Linda.
That's the river testing and the pond testing.
And pond testing and
Go ahead.
excellent. Okay. Congratulations on your tree planting program at Waveney. Does that complete the tree planting program, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, that was as far as I know. I mean, I'll check with Tiger again, but all the trees were planted, so they're in there. It was sugar maples, silver maples, I think it was, and dogwoods.
Okay.
So we have, as New Canaan, we have no Sustainable Connecticut project currently. If any organization, person, or group is interested in reaching out, there's a new Sustainable Connecticut Matching Fund manager. They're looking for someone after Abe, who I know you've worked with, Chris, has left. But otherwise, if there's any projects, if people think they can raise funds for with a match, it's open.
Okay. Well, let's continue that discussion along with what you've just presented on Waveney Park and some efforts in other areas. We recently were directed towards a town-wide tree survey package that was done in, tell me if I've got it right, I think it is Weston, Massachusetts, that completed the survey. And it struck me, and I've had a brief discussion with John Fusick about whether or not we could undertake a town-wide or a sort of like a survey monkey survey of regarding our tree coverage here in New Canaan. And the thinking was that we would get permission to use their format, but construct it for New Canaan, and then distribute it via the various organizations electronically, obviously by newsletter or by email, and collect information on the citizenship of New Canaan's perspective towards our tree coverage and tree management programs. That is something I don't think would take a lot of financial effort, a little bit of programming effort, but I would think it would be something that we could approach the Nature Center, the gardeners, or the Beautification League, the Garden Club, various, and Planet New Canaan obviously could participate, and the Conservation Commission, which also has a database of email addresses. If we could somehow get that information out and collect a survey, I think it would strengthen our position here in town to say $400,000 for taking trees down and nothing for putting trees in. How do we start to address the fact that, White Oak Shade Road has only 2 remaining white oaks on it, or Elm Street or Cherry, and then in particular, South, Main, West, a number of roads where we've lost major trees and don't really have a new program to replace what we're suffering from. And everybody knows about the ash tree blight and the emerald ash borer, but now we're suffering from beech leaf blight. So without some proactive, I guess what I'm trying to do is develop a groundswell of let's focus on maintaining the scenic beauty of New Canaan and its tree coverage, capture carbon, clean the air, mitigate, water runoff, and start developing a more robust tree planting program.
And the last 2 elm trees on Elm Street, American elms on Elm Street, are slated for chainsaws.
Oh, because
The
they're sick.
Ones on the sidewalk by the railroad station, those are the last 2.
Why are they? Because of they're not healthy, or they're just in the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I think that this is a good idea, and my hope is that with this kind of an effort, which I was going to ask John Fusick to lead, but he is now that he's not here, maybe I can designate him without any objections to lead that program and organize it. And if we have to invest a little money in a programming change to set it up, but I would like to get that, because I think that this would be another great opportunity to apply the ARPA funds towards as part of our goal to support public space and sustainability in New Canaan. So I'd like to hear any opinions from the commissioners on this subject. Susan, Marty?
To say.
Go
May
ahead.
I?
Marty. Yes.
I find maples are all over the place and they grow like weeds, and it's tough just stopping them from taking over the whole garden. So that any planting that we do, consider maybe not planting more maples. There must be, I have a shagbark, what is it, a
Shagbark hickory.
hickory, and it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And there's birch out there, which is tough. Birch is tough to put in, but there's a whole series of trees we could consider other than maple.
I would just like to point out that a lot of the times when people see maple trees, they're the Norway maples that spread like crazy, which are actually invasive, and not the native sugar maples and silver maples and red maples.
Correct.
So how would there's a tree warden in town and a tree board, correct? Wouldn't we want to be working with them on this?
The tree board is no longer.
Oh, and is there a tree warden?
Yes, there is.
So
I I would say we'd have to take the tree warden into the planning, and to Marty's point, if we were to create a groundswell for, an improvement in our tree coverage, that would lead to a planting plan. And that planting plan would specify what species are best or most appropriate for our town. And for sure, the tree warden would have a role in that, but there might be an argument to bring in an arborist or a planner to say, let's take a look at our town, broadly, and say, where are the opportunities for tree planting, and decide that, we either have a 50 or a 150 tree planting opportunities up and down our roadways. And these are the kind of trees we should be placing along them, and not only placing trees, but then working on the maintenance program of those trees that we still have. So there is right now our tree budget, I think, is focused towards at-risk trees, dying trees. And we've had a lot of them because of ash and blight and what have you, and the risks of storms and such. But we need to kind of reorient ourselves, or say there's another half to that coin, which is how do we start planting trees for the future to replace those that we've lost.
In Fairfield, they're famous for their dogwood season. They have planted, and it's notable, dogwoods all over the place. It's just gorgeous.
And that's there lies the opportunity. It's been done elsewhere, and certainly we can explore it. But I would like to start with the survey, and then encourage the use of ARP funds towards tree coverage, and then come up with a plan which could be completed in 6 to 9 months by the middle of next year, and then try to think, okay, how do we execute? There's some very obvious things, but there are other things less obvious that we have to explore. So, Susan, any thoughts or comments on that subject?
No, my only thought on the survey that we circulated
Yes.
was that I think we should lay off of the private properties
Okay.
and concentrate on the public properties.
Okay. Right. And try to, I think that survey came in, it was basically in response to a series of development projects that clear cut entire acres.
Well,
of
that
mature
happens. That's what happens. But I think if we get into that, we're entering ourselves into a whole different.
Yep. I think we can gather information on it, but not promote tree planting there. Although the thought of promoting tree planting on private property in some manner or form isn't totally unattractive either.
It's not if it's supported. But I would say along public roads.
Absolutely.
I'll just take Owen Oak Ridge as a perfect example. We have huge maples. They're falling down and they're dying and they need to be replaced. And they are mostly on public property, private property. But if we supported a replanting program for that, I think we would have much more support than if we were telling other people, you cannot take down the trees on your property.
Okay. Yep. I would say, yeah, I think that I don't think we'd be able to, I mean, it's just not in our, it's just not possible to direct private property holders on what they can or can't do on their property, but we could encourage the preservation of mature trees where possible.
Or even look for funding sources that would support private property owners who want to replace trees or encourage tree growth on their property with some public funding sources.
If possible, it's something that could be explored, but I agree with you that the focus should be on public property, public
Yes.
open space, and particularly roadways and streetways and byways.
Yes.
Okay.
Norwalk had a program like that. I can look into it, but they had a program where I think I don't know if they got it through a grant or the city provided trees that people could plant themselves on their private property.
There's the thought. Then I will move off of this and ask John Fusick to see if he can't modify the survey from Weston, Massachusetts, convert it to a new Canaan focus and go forward. He had sent me some comments on that point previously. I've got a note here about spotted lanternfly alert. Robin, is there anything that we as a conservation commission can do to help on that front?
So Conservation Commission is sponsoring a program with it's Dr. Claire Rutledge. She's of the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station. She's the agricultural scientist there. Beautification League is willing to allow their webinar format Zoom, which holds 500 people, to be used for this program, and she'll come and talk about, because they have been found now in Fairfield County, you know, what it is, what to look for, particularly the eggs on the trees, how to help stop prevention, and because it's a real problem for orchards. They're just decimating it. So I think they came from China about 3 or 4 years ago on some masonry products. They hitched a ride and now they're here. So she is pretty flexible with times. We were thinking November, and I said I would, during this meeting, I would ask what you thought, when you would like to hold it, and then I'll get back to her for dates and times.
Would it be possible something like the week before Thanksgiving, something like that?
Yeah, I can ask.
Okay, and then is there any funding requirement for this program, or is it,
No.
are we simply providing it? And is this also beneficial to Sustainable CT program?
Yep.
Point?
So this is one of the programs for Sustainable Connecticut Education. Because it is Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, they, you know, a donation would be nice, but you don't have to. And I know it's hard for municipality to give money. So that is fine. It can be recorded. It can go onto the Conservation Commission page.
Excellent.
Tiger said the Department of Public Works would like to be a co-sponsor, as well as New Canaan, Aaron Leaf Lefland Land Trust said they'd be happy to put their name on it as well, just to get more publicity out there.
Very good. Okay. Question on food scraps. I don't think Tiger's on for any data. It's moving forward.
Yeah, I haven't received, I'll email Don Smith. I haven't received any updates. There are currently just 4 containers out there, but I think they're, to add space, they have 4, and then they're bringing them down below when they're filled up.
Okay.
It still seems to be popular. We'll go with that. I've had some people contact me recently that they didn't know about it and they'd like it to be publicized more, so we'll work on that. But right now we're pretty much maxed out with you know, the bins we have being filled up within a week. So we're basically about 1,200 pounds a week that we can take, unless we end up getting more space at some time.
Is the constraint awareness, or is the constraint space?
I think, I mean, I feel like I need to speak with Dawn before, but it seems to be space, because only when I go there right before it's picked up, the bins look to be filled.
Mhm.
You know, as for publicity on it, you know, we're trying to reach, I mean, it went out in the tax bills, you know, we're
Yes.
trying to reach everyone. It might be nice, maybe if the Conservation Commission want to sponsor maybe a printout to give out to, you know, the town greeter. I know there are 2 of them in town for new residents. That could be something to,
You know,
to that audience.
Well, you know, I think that there might be an opportunity for a handout, and then maybe we can get a slobs organization or some service-minded high school students to attend on Saturdays and hand them out to people showing up at the recycling center or at the transfer station to encourage it, and see whether that doesn't trigger another 50 people. And then, you know, if they hand out the brochures and say, these are the kind of things you need, maybe we can give away disposable, you know, the biodegradable bags as well. Whatever you think would work. I think that we can put some, you know, wood or put some funding behind it if necessary.
We could, we could maybe team up with Stewart's and Weed and Duryea because they do sell the bags.
Mhm.
It's nice directing business to local businesses.
I agree.
And particularly Weed and Duryea, they've really stepped up. They have lots of bins now in different size bags.
Mhm.
Stewart's is actually doing their own food scrap program where they're actually, I think they're at 1,200 pounds a week just from their vegetable material.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, if we could work with them and do something. I just don't want to give away too much free because I want, since those businesses have been so great in
Yeah.
helping it, we direct it towards them.
Sure, we could direct them there. And, maybe there's if you give out, 5 bags as a starter, somebody will then go out and get more elsewhere. So prime the pump.
Yeah.
Whatever ideas you have, anything we can do to help that, I'm a big believer in reducing food scraps. It's somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of the volume. So I don't believe we have anyone on to talk. Any other points on food scrap recycling you'd like to?
Nope, all good.
Okay. We don't have anyone on to talk about solar power. I'm still waiting for a written message regarding solar to go into the motor vehicle tax mailer insert in December, but the rest is in place. So I'm pushing on that, just slow. We're on point F, transfer station, swap shop funding and programming.
Can we get a meeting together at the swap shop? I
What?
mean, at the transfer station?
Well, I mean, we need to really sit down with Tiger and say, okay, so what's the path to creating a swap shop?
Yeah, so we have, we've looked into a couple of grant possibilities, one being recycleCT.com. They have grants. Their their application is June. So we missed it for this year. Sustainable Connecticut, if we want to go for a matching grant, we've been given verbal approval. That was last spring. We'd have to go to them again. And also there's a couple other grants from organizations to go through nonprofit like Planet New Canaan and then towards the town. I do know the scale house is still being worked on and they do have those big bins there. So if we could meet with Tiger and Don Smith at the transfer station, have a meeting, that would just to see where we are, because we do have about 20 people signed up to be volunteers.
Hold on for a second. Pam, can you find out where that background noise is coming? All right, it's quiet now. Go ahead, Robin.
No, so if, we have 20 volunteers that have signed up already.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose momentum and lose them, but we haven't really reached out for more until we know what's going on. So I will say the Darien Swap Shop, I was in contact with them and they are closed on weekends now because they got too popular. However, from their location, after town council visited and conservation commission members that, it's their first selectman even said it was a bad location within their transfer station right by the gate. So they've had, because it became so popular, that they are closed on Saturdays now, but they're open Monday through Friday.
It's an interesting problem to have. I guess if we could get to that, that would be a good start. So
we wouldn't have that problem just because, well, we might, but just because of their layout with the gate right there, and you right after the gate into the swap shop area. So
I haven't got much purchase from Tiger or the team on a transfer station master plan or a replan of what's going on for the future. We still do things ad hoc there. I mean, the big blockage is until they can get a salt cellar. They're like a salt barn. It kind of restricts what we can do, but clearly a salt barn would free up a lot of space over there, and then some stuff could be demolished, some could be remaining. But I think we have to keep pushing on this because we've got to reduce the amount of debris we're putting into the incineration stream. It just doesn't make sense, and we should do better. So
yeah, well, Sven could probably tell you that The $50,000 was approved in this past budget for a study on a new salt dome. Supposedly we're the only municipality without one. And then if the study goes well and if it's approved, then that frees up a lot of space for sustainability initiatives at the transfer station.
Well, that's a big piece of land there. And, one of the things that we don't have any access to is the dome over the old dump, which is currently used by DPW for truck storage. So there's got to be some way to unlog jam what we have there.
They also use that area for snow. That's another concern for that area.
Got it. Well, all right. No easy answer. I'm going to continue to push on reverse vending machine banks because there's so much recyclable glass, plastic, and aluminum going into the tips in the single stream that gets destroyed that it makes no sense. And I don't get it. I mean, I know it's hard, but right now, if you're any normal person in New Canaan, you don't buy all your container beverages from one site. And yet each site restricts what they will take back. So if the town had reverse vending machines of any type, we would find that we'd reduce the amount of debris going in there and maybe save some of the paper for recycling purposes. So that's another opportunity that we can explore and see whether we can get funding on it. So those are two big things.
Sorry, I just want to say that I was hoping Katie Owsley would make this meeting tonight, but we went to the Wilton transfer station today and looked at their glass recycling program.
Mhm.
That's something to look into. They do it through the Housatonic Resources Authority, probably getting that wrong, but it is through Oak Ridge, who takes our recycling, and it's a pilot program. So actually, Chris, I sent you pictures of it. But that's something to look forward to. I just don't know if our transfer station has this.
Right. And glass is the biggest contaminant in single stream recycling. So if there is a way to take glass, whether it's red, whether it's clear, brown, or green, would be another big step forward. But I think we have to keep taking baby steps until we eventually get into a better program. Thank you for that. I don't have anything to add on point G. Just we have a budget, we have funding that we can apply. I am waiting for one final piece on the solar so that the first selectman or Tiger Man can make a statement about using solar and the benefits of solar. And that'll move forward. And I don't think we need to discuss that. And then I thought it was pretty interesting, Robin, that you brought up the idea of a 10K runners event or a 10K walkers event, for instance, in New Canaan. I think it'd be a great idea and would promote green links or walkways and walking New Canaan or running New Canaan.
Yeah, if you Google, if you look up in the Darien Land Trust, they are promoting a 10K run. It's something that you have a QR code on and you can sign up. Not saying that Conservation Commission for Green Links should do exactly like they do, but how they're doing it is it's quite popular. I think it's $15 if you want it for prizes, but it's to lead you to all of the land trust properties around Darien. So if you want to promote the Green Link walk, it could be, I don't know about running on the Green Link because I'm thinking of that, the nature center and in between Irwin and land trust property, but maybe for walking, it could be something you could look into. Yeah.
That might be an interesting project. I like the idea of people walking and riding, and I have in the course of discussing ARPA funds and allocation of funds, I've said we really have to promote walkability and bikeability here in New Canaan. And I think that we have support from DPW. We just have to get around all these state road restrictions. And I can tell you, it drives me crazy. I come up 106 regularly coming back from Greenwich, and I see, young moms with a stroller walking alongside 106, no sidewalk. And all it takes is 1 second on a text message. It's gotta be addressed. So I'm adamant that we get that green link. And so it's safer and more enjoyable for people to walk in town. And we've got these great parks. We need to be able to make them accessible and make them stroller and senior accessible. So that's my big rant for the day. Any other questions regarding sustainability in New Canaan and the programs?
Sorry to talk again, but have anyone ever done a GoPro video of the green link that the Conservation Commission can share?
Michael Dinan did a GoPro when we opened up the green link between Irwin Park and the Nature Center, and he took it all the way down into town. It would be wonderful if we could kind of GoPro through Mead Park, then through Bristow Park, and then down to Waveney Park. So maybe there is an idea there as well. The GoPro project. And that was popular on the New Canaanite when he did it. A lot of people enjoyed that because he did it with his dogs. So they were always in front of him in the GoPro. I like it. I'll make a note and see whether we can't find someone interested in taking on a project like that. All right. Any other questions, points on sustainability? We're at the 7 o'clock mark. All right, I'll move forward just on Bristow. If you haven't seen it, the raised walkway is now completed. There's just a little touch up at the back end to put some boulders into some, to lock in the back of it, but that's in. I don't know, Marty, have you had a chance to see it?
No, I haven't, but I've been down there, but I didn't go on the walkway.
All right, well, I think the gravel path has been put through to it, so it's definitely interesting. Newell, have you been able to see it?
Hi, yes, it looks very nice. Big
Got it.
improvement.
It is, and we're fortunate to get it in there because Ida changed the stream direction from running straight back into the swamp area to running underneath the new raised boardwalk. So it now actually it's got a flow of water coming underneath it. We may be able to do something to kind of announce it. On the park itself, there is a punch list of items to address. And most importantly is there was some heavy scouring from the storm Ida, on the trail that Peter Lanny will be working on to build better swales to divert water. The town of New Canaan has filed to FEMA for funding to repair damages done to the scouring over the crossing bridge and on the side. So that's work that has to be done. I'm pleased to report that the Parks Department did clean up on either side of the green link, did some mowing and clearing to keep the trees free. So that's there, although my object is to get the Parks Department to do it on a more maintenance type schedule as opposed to ad hoc. So you let it go, it's a lot of work. If you just address it once every 3 weeks, it'll be better. We are moving towards, and this would be helpful for commissioners, if you could put it in your diary, or if you're willing to help out hang on, I'm going to give you the date. I think it is on October 30th, we have a large contingent of slobs coming to help plant ferns in the fernery. And the program will run from about 9 to 4. If any of you are available to be on site, it's very helpful from a guidance standpoint and from a encouragement standpoint. I'll plan to be there. If we have anyone else who wishes to attend, that would be great. But it's not unlike, I think Marty and I once had a lot of fun with a big troop of Boy Scouts clearing. Sorry, Marty, what?
Could you repeat that? When are
Yes.
they going to plant?
October 30th, the Service League of Boys will be coming in, and dads will be coming in to plant ferns at the fernery location, which is just above the pond area. Prior to that, Lanny Landscape is going to prep the area and put in the interior trails for it. And then the plants are being delivered by Copia the day before. So it's sort of like a let's have fun and plant a lot of ferns day. So if you can put that on your calendars, and if any of you can attend at any point during the day, it would be wonderful. The phase two, so interestingly enough, that's just completing phase one, and we're about to start phase two, which is really the stream trail and the railroad trail improvement. That project has been awarded to Peter Lanny Associates. Yesterday, they walked it with the landscape architect, Peter Lanny, and Bill Pollock walked it. And so that plan is in place. We're just looking for a start date on that program. But hopefully before year end, we will see the next phase of improvement going on. And I'm very pleased. Lanny and the carpenter did a great job on the raised walkway, and we think we'll get another great improvement in this next phase. Marty, you had a question regarding the pavilion that's planned. And I spoke with Bill Pollock. That pavilion has been reviewed with Connecticut Country Casual, I think it's called, and specified. And there'll be some coordination between ordering that pavilion and building the pad with concrete footings for the pavilion. But it will be an open-sided pavilion and sort of like a halfway house. So that's in planning. I would say everything I hear is wood supplies and scheduling is in delays, but I would be certain that we should be able to get that in at least by the end of the first quarter, if not first quarter of 2022, if not by year end. I think year end is ambitious.
I'd like to see what it's going to look like before you build it.
You got it. I will make it a point at the next meeting to have a drawing or a model or a picture of the pavilion. All right. I think you see on point B, that's about the fernery and the center crossing pavilion we touched on. Quick one for all of you. Several New Canaan High School classes contributed money to a memorial for the former principal of New Canaan High School, Jim St. Clair, who passed away earlier this year. The pin oak tree has been planted and a bench has been ordered, but they've also added $3,000, which they would like to make as a conservation award to a high school student. And what they were thinking of is, maybe 5 years of $500 or 5 years of $300 or $400 and $200 awards to New Canaan High School students who are dedicated to conservation. And I think I would be willing to lead that. And I think it should be given to juniors, not seniors, because it helps a junior in their college application to say, I want a Conservation Commission award. A senior is already, admitted. So, and I think that may help us get a little more stewardship at our parks, but in particular Bristow Park. So it was very nice of them to offer the incremental funds, and I think we can convert that into a program. I think I should reach out to the high school to understand how those programs are done. I know that there's a preservationist award that Mimi Finley gives, but I don't know if I think this would be a conservation award from the Conservation Commission. Sound good?
Jim
Great,
St. Clair was a
great.
good guy.
Great idea.
Okay.
Jim St. Clair was the guy who hired Gary Field to run the environmental biology course, which first year it was taken was the year that I took it.
Now that's interesting.
So Jim St. Clair was quite a guy.
And look at you, Sven. Look at the beneficial effect that course had.
Yeah.
Well,
Bendy,
it meant that
think
when I
it's extended.
graduated, I was the first person to take to graduate with 5 science courses.
Nice.
wow.
Well, I mean, there's another opportunity for the high school to they offer such great programs. I've always said when I was in the land trust, we create a lot of great doctors and lawyers and financiers, but we also have to create environmentalists and people who care about the world we live in. So,
Well, we did, with the help of the folks at the Nature Center, we opposed Laszlo Papp's proposal to aerially spray the whole town of New Canaan with malathion to stop gypsy moths. So that was the beginning of my political education too.
there you go. There you go. Okay, I'm going to table any discussion at this moment regarding replacing the former St. Francis statue until November. And I'd simply put a note about at some point thinking again about the future of Bristow Park. I mean, if you really have fun and you think, what could this be 100 years from now? Because it still is so protected by a deed. You're looking at something that's sort of like an aviary, our own coal mine. In other words, if the birds can survive in New Canaan, in Bristow Park, where there's still life and diversity, but it's almost like an aviary, terrarium, or arboretum thinking. And Bristow will go on, when we've all moved on. And so we have to start thinking about what we can do to make it special or keep it special. I mean, we're making a big push to have its celebration in 2024. And at that point, it would be good to say what we could envisage for this park, having gotten, support from both the town and from the Friends of Bristow. So any questions, observations regarding Bristow? Okay.
I would like to see if we could incorporate into the plans in Bristow planting of a notable type of tree that Bristow would be known for years from now.
Okay.
Now, as I said, we have in Fairfield County, we got the dogwoods, and everybody reminds it it's a wonderful place to go. And so I was thinking, is there any way we could, in addition to having taking care of the species that are native to the areas, which we've been good at, that we could introduce or have a section there where we would have trees that we would eventually be noted for.
You mean something like a cedar of Lebanon or
Something like, that people would, whether it's a flowering tree, a shagbark type of tree where you see the bark, or there are certain trees that possibly we could become noted for.
The white oak at Waveney is dying.
that is, yep, on its way up. But the white oak standing out in front of Bristow is still doing well and has been managed. So in terms of spectacular trees, we have that massive white oak in front that, and I was reading through the minutes from 1928 or something, and the original Bartlett tree service, the original Bartlett, said that this tree is circa 300 years old already. So 100 years, we potentially have a 400-year-old white oak out in front that we could celebrate. And I think your other point is, and I'm struggling with this a little bit, which is I'm trying not to get overly signaged in Bristow. I want to celebrate nature, but at the same time, when we had the Audubon come in and do a survey of the property, they said it has a remarkable diversity of trees. I mean, there's a cottonwood in there, which is pretty unusual. There's definitely shagbark hickories. Some people have pointed out. So maybe there's a way to create something of a kind of a walking map, instead of labeling trees, a kind of a walking map that's iPhone capable, where people could wander around and say, all right, I want to see a giant pepperidge tree. Where is one? And it would tell you that's over here. There's two big shagbark hickories, or there's a massive white oak. Or recently we've put in a sycamore. We've planted quite a few diverse ones. We put a sycamore in. We have a river oak, river birch, and various ones. So there might be an argument to a tree identification walking system. And the great thing about trees is they don't go anywhere. So you build the program, it's good for many, many years. So I like your thinking, Marty, about how to celebrate the diversity of tree life there. And, you know, and I also like it because it gets me towards that arboretum kind of thinking there. Great. Thank you, Marty, for that suggestion. Any other points regarding Bristow? All right. Open space, and just quickly on this one, I'd like to hear from the commissioners' perspectives regarding, and I don't mean this just regarding the potential of, you know, we've had a couple of suggestions about where the police station could be sited, and I'm in full agreement that when it comes to that issue, you need to explore all options before you rule them out and push each idea until it becomes seemingly, no, that's not going to work. But I'd like to hear from the commissioners your thoughts regarding the use of perceived open space, or you know, obviously you can't use protected open space, but the use of perceived open space for structures and what have you. So I know, Marty, you brought the idea up, or you wanted to discuss it. Why don't you lead the discussion?
All right, well, I have a meeting coming up with Kevin. He suggested he's going to buy me a cocktail and we're going to talk about it. But I want to explore first whether or not we are going to need to have a new building. In other words, before we start talking about where the new building will be, we should discuss whether or not we can use the old building, refurbish it, and save tons of cash. The building from the outside, the building looks great. It's a brick building, ties right into the town's look. In my opinion, I don't know much about this, but I would think that you could rehab that for a lot less money, and it would serve us for many, many, many years to come. It's in a central location. It's in town. They talk about having shooting pistol ranges, and that's in very few police stations have that. They can go to another venue and practice shooting, so that's not a problem. They talk about not having space for women, and that can be taken care of. So I don't know why a beautiful building like that should be abandoned.
Marty, I hear your point on that. I would say that, you know, I don't know whether it's in our purview as a conservation commission to determine what building we need or not. I think it is being reviewed and handled by other groups. So I take your point, and I also know that you are concerned about locating it next to the Y where there's perceived open space.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And
I don't think anything should be built on that space. It's a
Right.
beautiful space. You come into town and it's a wonderful greeting, and it tells you this is New Canaan.
I take your point. And yeah, on the other side is the beautiful woods of Waveney running up that side too. I'm sorry, I'd like to just ask if the other commissioners have any comments or thoughts that they'd like to add regarding this.
I'm not in favor of having it built near the Y, having a police station there. I think there are other sites to be prioritized before, next to Saks and between the Y. That's my opinion.
Okay. And Susan, any comments that you'd like to make? Maybe Susan's away. You know, where I think the concern would be as the Conservation Commission and a chair would be the loss of what is perceived as open space. I'm pretty sure that field is not protected open space per se, but it does highlight, you know, where a situation is where legally land that is not protected but is perceived as open space, if it gets used, you know, we lose that in perpetuity. So the issue for me will always be, while we as a commission are trying to preserve and protect open space and potentially add to the amount of protected open space in New Canaan, which I think does give something to future generations, there's always a constant pressure to develop and to build, and particularly as we become a higher population zone. But I do want to make it clear that the conservation's role of preserving and protecting open space is validated, and that we make it a point to say, you know, there's no offset to this. It's not as if the town can say, well, we need this, but we're going to preserve or permanently protect all of this, you know, some kind of offset, or, you know, make this a non-zero sum game. And yet another reason why funding the land acquisition fund is a good idea, because if we could convince water companies to convert land from category 3 or category 2 to preserved, that would be a big plus. So like any time a couple acres of perceived open space are taken away, we need to think really hard about what's the offset and how do we increase it. We're going backwards otherwise. Yes, Marty.
Chris, I could tell you some years ago when we at the YMCA wanted to have some space next to the Y to be used for the parking that we needed. We had tremendous opposition to that, tremendous opposition. So that I would think there's a lot of opposition
Okay.
in town to using that space.
All right.
Marty, you know, what I would say is, you know, you have Kevin is a good advocate for open space in town. And I think that the Conservation Commission would be prudent to watch the situation develop, you know, before you step into this, you know, with a commission action.
Correct. Agreed. Thank you for that, Sveta. That's sort of where you know, these ideas have to develop, and then there's an opportunity for us to weigh in, particularly when and if it decides that it's needed to absorb public space or a perceived open space. So, but thank you, Marty, for bringing it up and discussing it. Going to table the open space criteria memo and then move on to new business. Can we get an update regarding you know, quiet New Canaan or noise abatement and a leaf blower and land care equipment, Linda and I guess Robin?
Sure. Well, I did send around to each of the commissioners and to Robin a summary of the meeting that she arranged with Chris Herring, Drew McGrattan, John Seal, Christy Bono. She wasn't there. To discuss the leaf blower ordinance and how we might approach some kind of restriction to leaf blowers within, you know, in the municipality in the town of New Canaan. So I don't want to have to, you know, go through all that we discussed, but what I'd like to accomplish at this meeting is that we have sort of a purpose to continue to pursue developing or recommending to the town council that they create some kind of an ordinance to reduce sound, to restrict leaf blowers, ultimately perhaps to restrict other gas-powered lawn equipment. But this is just the beginning of this project, and it will take a lot of thought, and we need to know if this is something that the community wants. And so we talked about a survey, and then an awareness campaign. I can tell you that when this first came up, yes, I was concerned about noise, you know, I was bothered by noise, but then the more I got into it, the impact on the environment became a great concern to me. So I don't know how the other commissioners feel, if we should continue to pursue this and ultimately make a recommendation to the town, or if we should put it to the bottom of the list of our activities.
like to hear from Marty and Susan on your thoughts regarding, and to be specific, Linda, you mean two-stroke gas-powered leaf blower and land care equipment, not electric equipment, but
Well, I don't know. I think this group, this team, if you looked at the sample ordinances, even in nearby neighboring communities, some of them ban ban actually electric powered because they do also contribute to pollution. I imagine that ultimately we would come up with something very conservative, just in perhaps limiting their use to months and hours, and encouraging electric blowers because they're quieter, et cetera. There are a lot of different approaches that we can take to an ordinance, to developing or recommending an ordinance. And I just think that, we need to meet, have further meetings, further discussion on what we think may be possibly accepted by the community of New Canaan or the town council.
And Westport, they're working on an ordinance right now. They had a reading of it at their October 5th RTM meeting. It was not up for discussion. It was just a reading. It's now going to be debated at their next RTM meeting. Unfortunately, their meeting minutes aren't up yet, so I can't have access to them. But their ordinance looked at allowing gas powered twice a year for a few weeks in the fall and then the spring for fall cleanup and spring cleanup, and then just electric. Their hours were 9 to 5, but that doesn't mesh with our noise ordinance, which is 7 to 7. But I was kind of hoping to see how theirs plays out and then go from there.
just, go ahead, Susan.
I was only going to say that I think we've talked about the noise issues, but I think also the environmental issues. I think the biggest problem is most people do not understand. They have this host of people who come in with all these machines and they work for 1 or 2 hours a day. They clean every leaf off of every surface, but they have no idea what they're doing. And I think that we need to have a sort of a layered approach here. To simply say we want to ban them is just probably not very effective, but to sort of layer in, maybe we want to start here by banning the scheduling, the systems of certain, to your point, Robin, of being just these hours and this sort of the scheduling of this, but also to understand what are you doing. But I don't think these people understand your leaves and your stuff that you're blowing away. Much better to just mulch it up, take it with your leaf blowers and your lawnmower people. Anyway, I think it's a combination. I think it's a layered approach.
Right.
So, Susan, if you had time to read the document.
I did read your document and it was amazing, Linda. Thank you.
Oh, well, but we did hope to have an awareness campaign, and because the public certainly would need to be educated about the toxic effects of this gas-powered lawn equipment and lawn care, and how we can better care for our landscapes. Yes, it would be a layered approach. It would be a strategic approach before we made any recommendations to the town.
So just as a point of order, it sounds like many of us feel like this is something that should be promoted. I would suggest, if it's possible, maybe, and Susan, using your talents, that in the maybe not in November or December, but by January, we kind of put a resolution together. I don't think a motion makes sense, and nor can we write the ordinance, but we put a resolution together seeking town council support towards an ordinance or a discussion of managing the noise and health effects of two-stroke or gas-powered lawn equipment in our town. And at the same time, encourage our Parks Department to move towards quieter, muffled or electric use as a leadership role. So if there's a way to do that, and I don't know how that works towards the town council schedule. I know you have an ordinance committee and you have many issues to address with. What is your sense? We're fortunate to have two counselors, one soon to be emeritus, but another in present. Get your perspective on what you think the appetite would be at the town council level for something like this.
Ben, you're on the ordinance committee, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. It's something that, we can definitely bring forward, or, you can definitely bring forward, Chris, to the ordinance committee, and, see if Steve, and folks will be willing to pick it up. The deal with ordinances is, they're not something that we take lightly, quite
Right.
frankly. I understand, the need for it. I understand, what's going on in the surrounding communities. I share your unhappiness with the noise, and people just, blowing their lawn waste out into the roadway. Plus the basic air pollution problems involved in any two-stroke, oil lubricated motor. So there's a lot to unpack there. Push it, talk to Steve, see if he can get some people going on it. I think, if we show that there's, community and, community concern about this, then they will certainly take it up, but we have to show community concern first.
Good point.
Robin, do you think, you were at the meeting, obviously, the Zoom meeting. What do you think that this approach is the best one? What are your feelings about this?
I know the question that's going to come up first will be enforcement, because much like the noise ordinance, how does it get enforced?
Yeah.
So that will be brought up. I do know that some people have written recently directly to town council regarding leaf blowers who are upset, and it did appear from the chairman that there would be discussion on it. So people are talking about it. I honestly don't know if it just happens to be all the people who are driven nuts by them. It becomes an echo chamber of them talking just to each other, and some people are fine with it. That was one of the things that we sent with that Lewisboro survey that they did. But there are a lot of more communities. Greenwich, I think they're still on one leaf blower per property. I don't know if that's expired yet. That was a COVID measure, but I think some groups are trying to make that stay. I know Darien was working on something, but I haven't heard anything since. Obviously Westport is, I thought Richfield was as well, but I haven't heard anything. But obviously the Westchester County towns like Larchmont and Scarsdale. Scarsdale, I think I think Scarsdale's the complete ban, isn't it? Or is that Larchmont? One of them is a complete ban.
Rye is the complete.
Oh, it's right. Okay.
Yeah, Larchmont, yes, Larchmont as well. I have that here. And Greenwich, this may not be up to date, but the existing rule is only one gas blower time if the site is a 1/4 acre or less.
Yeah, they had.
And then time restrictions.
Yeah, they had COVID restrictions of just one per property.
Yeah, right.
I'd say that your iron is hot for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That, yeah, as far as awareness, because they're going to be, as soon as those leaves come down, we're going to be, the noise pollution is going to come up.
Now's the time.
I think the Westport ordinance, though, is a good compromise because it does allow for the fall cleanups and the spring cleanups, but it's what people are complaining about is that all summer, it's just leaf blowers all the time and they don't know why. I don't know if it's partially because of the restriction on bringing grass clippings to the transfer station. And that, that could be a consequence. And now we're having these leaf blowers, because I do notice they're leaf blowing just the grass while someone's mowing. And so that could be an unfortunate consequence of the state and not allowing grass clippings to be taken in. But I think allowing it in for cleanups is reasonable, but also because of the pollution and noise, when it's not really that necessary, that there are restrictions.
Well,
And that we did discuss the fact that more people were working from home, and therefore, they became more aware of the noise. Particularly, that's what started to drive John Seal crazy. He said, he would be
Yeah.
there's just noise all around him all the time. People drying their cars with their leaf blowers.
well, I think that as a commission, why don't we work towards our fact gathering, which has gotten off to a great start, and then have just a follow-on discussion next commission meeting, and work towards a resolution that we can move and support, that can be taken to the town council. And at the same time, Robin, you can test the waters for appetite. I'm not a big believer in just layering ordinances in. If we can find other means of convincing people and landscapers and homeowners to encourage their caregivers and themselves to use more electric and to be more sparing about what they blow away and what they allow to leave on their property. So I'd like the education aspect of the Conservation Commission to play a role here. Then see whether or not an ordinance, which could be a guidance ordinance or could be a phased in ordinance to eventually modify behavior. But I do agree with you that occasionally I'm trying to sit outside at 5 p.m. and enjoy a glass of wine, and it literally is humming. And my 4 houses around me are blowing, and you can hear them from, the decibel level is high enough. You can hear them from 8 acres or 10 acres away. I mean, it's just a din. So
Yes.
I think we're all affected by it, and being home more, we're even more affected by it. So thank you for taking the initiative on that. Any other comments regarding that point? Because I'd like to finish up. We're running a little long, and I'd like to finish up. Go ahead, Rob.
Robbie, we schedule another meeting with the team, and then and have a report for the next meeting then? Because I do feel like I need to get back to them, because they were so involved and, as such active participants in the meeting.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that. And I'll call Westport tomorrow, because their meeting minutes aren't up yet. And I want to see when the next one is and how the debate goes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Newell, I saw you came on. Did you want to make a comment?
No, I just think it's a very interesting topic, and I don't know if the commission has thought, but another noise generator in the winter is the generators, right? The power generators that come on after a storm, but that's another kettle of fish.
Yeah. And in California, they were banning those. And I thought that was very interesting.
Right.
And the Audubon Society did make a statement or recommendation that somehow it affects the bird population. So we need to kind of look at that as well.
Okay. Just quickly, I'd like to take a moment while Newell is on. Newell, could I ask you for the November Conservation Commission meeting to give us an update on birding in New Canaan, and just your latest observation? And I think just simply sharing some of the eBird hotspot information regarding whether or not this year has been as good or as bad, or what the trend in birding from your perspective has been.
I would say not bad in species diversity and what we're seeing out there. It's funny because different things are more numerous than others sometimes. But the migrants that have come through, pretty good range. I was just doing a check yesterday across the land trust, between land trust sites, just to see, and we've recorded 127 species collectively across all preserves. That's a pretty good total. And after setting up hotspots, there are multiple folks that post lists now on this. So there's more use of eBird and more data being gathered. And earlier you were speaking of the tree survey at Bristow, and it would be great to kind of extend the biodiversity beyond the birds, where Cornell is very good with that, but maybe there's something else going on, wildflowers, trees, other forms of life in the town, because you have that kind of repository of information, right? And then we have the baseline. Where are we today? And track it. But numbers are pretty good. And things happen like, let's say last year, with Groups Reservoir, I mean, they lowered the water levels over there near Brown. Water level went down. A lot of shorebirds showed up just by dint of the fact that there was exposed shoreline. And earlier this year, Kiwanis Park, the water level went down, and lo and behold, the shorebirds just kind of show up, right? So for these kind of, although it was a rainy year overall, those little changes can affect what comes in. And nature very quickly discovers if there's something changed on the ground. I guess another example would be Genium Meadow at Waveney Park. Incredible biodiversity. And it's just booming with things landing and people seeing species that I don't think had ever been seen in Waveney Park before.
I think I saw a red-eyed vireo doing sorties out there. And so that actually is, I'd like to continue to promote the birding aspect, because those are the canaries in our coal mine. If we're seeing crashes in bird population, it means we have to do more work. So perhaps perhaps you and I can discuss offline what a short discussion on birding is, but I love getting these updates. And I see it as part of the Bristow mission to, promote and support diverse bird life as well as diverse biodiversity in New Canaan. So thank you for that. Finally, I'd like to close with a brief conversation, and I'm going to take advantage of the fact that we have two town councilors. I had a chance to make a pitch in front of the town council, suggesting that with this ARPA funding, which is somewhere between 5.8 and 6 million, it seems to move a little bit, that I had promoted the idea that the town council should be thoughtful in seeing that a portion of it, and I suggested 1/3, be directed towards public space and sustainability, as both a recognition of how heavily used our public space is in this crisis, and how likely it is that everyone thinks that the pandemic will pass, but I think that these things will be endemic for the time to come, that we will be dealing with, whether it's SARS or other varieties of flu or flu cycles, that we need to continue to support our open space as places for people to find sanctuary and refuge from working at home and meeting with friends. And that sustainability, as we become more work at home and increase our density of pollution or whatever you ask, that it gets supported. And I'm just wondering, Robin and Sven, how you see the town council's role in trying to direct this, because I fear that in some ways there's a desire to evaluate every project from $5,000 to $1 million, and and to sit there and try to evaluate each one, as opposed to trying to say we'd like to direct the funds in certain areas. And what I need, I guess, is advice on how we can make sure that funds are directed towards the public space, whether it's tree coverage or sustainability in the nature in the transfer station, or improved walkability in our town. All these ideas, I want to make sure that we don't miss an opportunity to promote that, because we're the advocates for that. So Sven and Robin, your thoughts, take advantage of a guy who's been there a long time, as to how we guide this. And this is a very unusual process for the town to all of a sudden say, well, how do we correctly allocate these funds?
But the finance and government met today, didn't they, Sven? That committee? So they were going over who actually makes a decision of how these are allocated. I know most towns, it's been, most towns have created committees, usually with their board of selectmen, with granted it was their board of estimation, taxation, and some members of the RTM. To look through that, but I think when we're here from that committee report, their minutes, I think we'll know more on this, Sven.
Yeah, I agree. That committee meets, I would say, Chris, just you got to keep on it, every time, it comes up on, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance and Town Council, be there to, speak in public, and make your point again. You made a great presentation in front of the Town Council. The byplay after the meeting was, that, yes, was, met all of what Town Council is considering the criteria, which is basically, it's not a recurring expense. It is related to COVID or our COVID situation, as we experienced it here. So that's my advice so far, and just keep talking to the people. We've got Mark Jimsky has been heavily involved in that, and I would suggest that you talk to him quite a bit.
I think that is, my mind was moving towards that point as you were speaking of it. So maybe I can reach out to Mark and say, can we have a cup of coffee at some point and take a walk and have a chat and see and try to understand how he's thinking about the parameters that he'd like to work on.
Okay,
So that's helpful.
works good.
Okay.
It might also be helpful, obviously every town is different, but Fairfield, if you look at how they're spending their ARPA fund money, they're doing a lot of environmental, so it might be just interesting to see. I mean, obviously they got 24 million, where we're getting about 6, but they're doing a lot with environmental. I can send you the link, just what they're doing for it. Kind of interesting.
Got it. And so with that discussion, if the commissioners have any points they would like to make at this point, I will hear them, or we will hear them. If not, then I'd like to thank you all for attending. Laura, thank you for joining us as well. Sven, if I don't get to say this next time, thank you so much for your mentorship and your guidance and what you have done for the town of New Canaan.
Thank you, folks. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a
Working
pleasure.
with you for 8 years.
And I can tell you, I think your dad would be so proud of what you've accomplished here. I always
Yeah.
the two of you so way back in time. So thank you for all of that. And Pam, thank you for hosting our meeting. All of you, I wish you all the very best. Thank you for attending.
Good night.
Night. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.